Welcome now, David Parker. He's the senator who represents District 2. That's DeSoto County. Serves as the chair of the Senate Accountability, Efficiency, and Transparency Committee and the vice chair of the Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee. Senator, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Great to see you. Sorry I was running in, kind of coming in hot. It's a nasty day out there on the road, and so I'm glad to have made it here safely.
Well, we're pleased to have you as well, and I know we've been trying to get together, and I do want to express my gratitude to you for taking time to come down. I know that you guys are right in the throes of all the stuff going on in the Capitol, but it's important, I think, to give a report from your perspective to the people of Mississippi through the airwaves here, so we much appreciate it, you coming in. Thanks.
Great, and I tell people that my committee in particular, nobody remembers the name of it. Accountability, efficiency, and transparency is a tough one, so I've kind of loosely changed the name to Additional Education and Thought, and I will tell you that just about every bill that I receive in my committee requires just that, additional education and thought. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And I reviewed the legislation that flowed through your committee as well, and it was a pretty active agenda this year.
Yeah, there have been several things that we've been trying to just get attention to. You know, it's a challenging situation because my counterpart on the House side will be given equal scrutiny to anything that passes through. So it's not the committee that's known for passing the most legislation. It's the committee that's known for getting more of the challenging issues.
Gotcha. So let's just get right to it. You have been in the press, in the public square, in social media, etc., ignited quite the firestorm, as the media folks like to say, with this legislation that would affect not only the Department of Audit, but other agencies in Mississippi as well. The state auditor has essentially described it as one that would strip the power from the state audit department. I didn't quite see it that way, honestly, in reading through the text. I'm not sure that's totally accurate. Tell us your thoughts about what the catalyst was for this legislation, and then tell us what the disposition was.
Right. So, you know, this actually, you know, I think one of the things that happened was, you know, there was a contentious meeting in the Senate chamber between the auditor and another senator just shortly before the bill deadline. And so my bill comes out, and I think it was kind of construed that bill was a reaction to that or had something to do with that activity, and that is absolutely not the case. This legislation that was introduced came from a personal experience I had up in my area, and I'll just give you a little bit of background on it. I had someone called me and say there's a large press conference going on, and that someone, you know, locally has been arrested and that kind of thing. So I kind of tuned in and watched it, and you know, we had a local person who, the story as I understand it, was during COVID, lost his job, applied for federal unemployment insurance, neglected, you know, which was wrong, you know, to put on there that he had a small government salary. I'm not giving any names on this for reasons I'm going to mention here just shortly, and so he was arrested, mugshot, big press conference, and then the next morning he and his attorney held a press conference saying that he had paid all the money back and that they didn't understand why all the press and the fanfare was given to it. So I called MDS and asked if that was the case, you know, and was able to get some information. And they said, according to their records, that he had paid the money back, you know, and that and concerningly that they had not heard anything from the auditor's office before the arrest. And so my concern there was that maybe the auditor's office did not get the information they needed ahead of taking this action. And so reached out to the auditor, and we did not have a very good conversation about it. He just mainly wanted to know who I'd spoken to at MDS, and I told him I was not going to share that information. And then he said to me, and this was concerning, he said, the gentleman we're talking about, he said, he is a criminal and he needs to be in jail. And certainly we have a legal process where things like that can happen, you know, but I really didn't understand, exactly what was going on with it. So I looked into it a little bit more. And so part of my bill just basically kind of said that if the auditor's office is going to bring suit, that suit would be brought in conjunction with the Attorney General. And as we bring legislation through, my hope had been that I could get with the auditor and the AG and come with, some language that, maybe was agreeable for both of their offices. But that's not what happened. The bill kind of came out, and before we even hit the ground Monday, it had been given a name, and that's fine. I mean, people are, fine to describe things as they want, but that's just really not what the intent was. Well, so we bring it out of committee. We've got it on the calendar, and I get a correspondence from a prosecuting agency that says by bringing the bill and by describing the facts of the case, that I could be guilty of jury tampering, and I took that very seriously because the gentleman we're talking about, was arrested, had a mugshot taken, and it's certainly, within the purview of the person who sent the correspondence to me to be able to do that. I don't think that necessarily would have happened, but at the same time, if it can happen to anyone, it can happen to me. And just with my family and other people out there, that's not what I wanted to see happen. And so I withdrew the bill, and we don't have that bill in front of us. But, I continue to seek a solution, because we certainly want to see people who have broken the law. We want to see them prosecuted. But in this case, I think some other factors just kind of got in the way of that.
Well, this bill that you introduced, it touched on a lot of different areas. Senate Bill 2547.
I think it was 2847.
Oh, I'm sorry, I read it wrong.
Yep.
So the state auditor says that, well, you're really stripping their authority.
Right.
To investigate agencies for wasteful spending. You react to that?
So there's another provision in the bill. I believe it was on line. Let me get my line here. In the committee sub, it said in line 174, it changed the wording to. I'm sorry, in line 123.
Okay.
It removed the words "when deemed necessary" in certain audits. So there are certain audits for profit and nonprofits that right now in the statute say that the auditor will do these audits when deemed necessary. It removed that, and it clearly clarified that any state contract or any state expenditure over $10 million would need to be audited. Okay. And we both know there are many reasons for that in recent history that we would like to see that happen. So
sure.
The things that the bill did was it required collaboration between the AG and the auditor in bringing suit, and it increased the number of audits required in those particular circumstances.
So, but in terms of investigating agencies and public sector entities, with respect to identifying unnecessary wasteful spending, would this bill, we could talk about on the other side of the break, would it have prohibited the state auditor?
Absolutely not. And I'll say this, I think the auditor has done a very good job in going after and protecting the taxpayer dollars. But one of the challenging things as chairman of this committee is when issues are brought to me, regarding accountability, efficiency, and transparency, it's my duty in that role to try to create clarity so that it's easier for people to understand and have similar situations not occur again.
Senator David Parker is our guest in the Element Well studio. We're coming right back. This legislation that would have sort of clarified just some of the procurement policies related to the State Department of Audit. You're aware of this, Senator. I'm not telling anything you don't know, but the public, many in the public in the state, believe that this was totally influenced by the lieutenant governor, that you were simply carrying his water. But you explained to me don't think I'm talking out of school here. You just said it in the last segment that this is something that you'd been thinking about for a while. This didn't happen as a result of the hearing where the auditor and Senator Polk got into a rather contentious exchange there. And is it true that the lieutenant governor came to you after that and said, hey, I want you to go file a bill that would rein in the state auditor?
It's true that the day after that weekend, the lieutenant governor came to me and said, what's in this bill? I've been getting calls and emails and all kinds of things about this all weekend, and then I kind of brought him up to speed more on kind of the background behind it here. So, no, he was not involved in that. Way I look at Jackson is that you can be involved in policy or you can be involved in politics. And if you look at my career of being here, I have tried my best to steer clear of the politics as best I can and to just look at the policy and make improvements to deficiencies that we find, because there certainly are improvements that we can make that don't cost taxpayers any dollars, but can save taxpayers dollars by implementing them.
Okay, so you don't have any objection, as many in the public would say, to actually rein in unnecessary, wasteful spending.
In fact, I've got a bill this year that would give the procurement board more authority to look at contracts and to look at particularly emergency contracts and to give those more vetting, because I think there have been over the years some ways where certain contracts have been given exclusions and the system has been given a way where maybe the transparency has been at least decreased, and I think we can do a better job. And in an era right now where I'm excited about what I see DOGE doing, I see, improvements in, every, aspect of federal government, I think it's our duty at the state, to work together to see those same improvements occur here. So that's why I have a different bill to work on that.
Okay. Well, even if this bill had passed, it would not have precluded the state auditor from reporting and investigating agencies and then reporting wasteful spending.
It would not have.
It could have still done that.
Absolutely. In fact, it would have given more avenues and more instances where that could and should be done.
Well, yes. I want to make sure, because that's the way I interpreted the legislation when I read it, is that I didn't see anything.
That's the way it was written. Okay. That was my understanding in writing it. But sometimes, politics kind of change interpretation, and it's not a slight or any kind of comment for or against the auditor on this. I think just depending on the situation at the time, I think an interpretation was made in haste. Well,
that's what I wanted you to come on and clarify for members of our audience. That's the way I interpreted it. Also, the state auditor engaged a third party, spent $2 million, and we could debate ad nauseum on whether or not we needed to do that. But I do have concerns about any agency having the authority to contract with third parties for certain services that somehow would not be subject to review by the Procurement Review Board. And I'll follow up on that by saying, Senator, I have opposed the statutes which exempt certain personal services in our state from competitive bidding. They've been on the books for decades.
Right.
And I think it leads to lots of wasteful spending at the state level, at the county level, and at the municipal level.
I totally agree. And there are actively many bills in the process right now to decrease that scrutiny that we're having right now. I have extreme concern, like you do, over those bills moving forward, and I'm working to make sure that anything of that order hopefully comes to my committee so that I can prevent such measures from taking place.
We need to go in the other direction. These things need to be repealed.
Amen. Amen.
There's no reason why we cannot competitively bid every dime within reasonable limitations on the range of the procurement, the extent to which the competitive bidding needs to occur. Anything from not advertising, getting a couple of bids, to full-blown RFP for certain expensive procurements.
So one of the other challenging roles that I have in serving in this chairmanship is that I sit on the PPRB board and I sit on the personnel board. I'm not able to attend most of the meetings, but I do get reports from each of those meetings, and I look through some of the things that occur. And we have very high-risk children in the state who have some both law enforcement issues and also mental issues who are ordered by judges into facilities outside the state for huge dollar amounts. And that's something that I'm continuing to try to find solutions to. We've got some opportunities in the state to provide those services here, but much like in that case, there is some waste that's going on because we can't get everything that we need to get done in the state, and those are the challenges that I try to meet.
Okay. Well, before we get off the procurement subject, I know we want to turn our attention to a couple of other ones. I got to ask you about Senator Angela Hill's bill. That's the one I had on my screen when I said 2547. That is the bill as opposed to 2847, which deals with the state auditor primarily and other matters there. But this one would have prohibited public sector entities from granting preferential treatment based on race and ethnicity and gender, and this did not make it out of your committee. What are the issues there?
So that particular bill, just kind of got caught up into, the huge number of bills that were there, and if you look at the number of bills that came to my committee, I tried to look and find the ones that were not being dealt with elsewhere. I do think we've made a very strong effort this year to look at DEI and to kind of bring attention to that. And the situation you're describing is certainly an arm of that to some degree. And I think we can make some progress on that through other legislation. And, Senator Hill is someone I work with all the time. She has great ideas, and I don't think she was even able to come and speak to me about that bill before we even had committee meetings or until we finished them. So not all bills make it through, but that doesn't mean they're a bad idea. It just means that, from the conversations that were going on, they just didn't make it to the forefront at this time.
As a victim of these law, or not laws, but policies, certainly at the municipal and the county level, I strongly encourage you guys to pass this. I've been squawking about this for 30 years.
Yeah.
We will never fix the city of Jackson, ever, if we don't get something like this passed, because that is the root cause of all the problems in the capital city of Mississippi. It's corruption and procurement, and it stems from this preferential treatment. It's all they care about. Right. What's the race of the contractor? Okay, they win. Right. That's all. That's why we got bad roads, bad water, crime. Everything stems from that.
And to your point, and it is an excellent point. One of the things, and I just did a bill for Ted Hennepin, our third-party receiver, on the floor just before we came here, and he has done an excellent job of using the resources that he can with his authorities to find contractors who have come in and I think are doing a good job at putting a challenging water and infrastructure system back together. And it's an indication to me that with the proper people, the most vetted and the most able to complete the contracts, we can produce a better result. And so like everything, I think we should get the best contract at the lowest dollar by the best person suited to fulfill that need. I agree with you 100%.
Okay. I just want you to know that's not what's happening in the state of Mississippi. In the city of Jackson, there's a minority participation requirement. And if you don't meet that, you got no chance. Even though you may have met all the other criteria that you just listed there, you don't have enough minority participation, we can't award this contract to you. So we end up with paying a premium for inferior service. That's what's happening in the city of Jackson right now.
I agree. We will keep working on that.
Please.
I appreciate you bringing that particular one to my attention.
You got it. So talk about mental health and education, two subjects you want to talk about.
Yeah, so, I've really enjoyed this past summer. I got to serve as a chair of a mental health task force, and we had about 20-plus people from all different segments, from education to mental health to students to everyone, who came together, and we made some recommendations that I look forward to implementing that can make our schools, safer and better for the mental health needs of the state.
Okay. All right. Senator David Parker has been our guest here in the Element Wealth studio. Appreciate you coming in, Senator. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We're coming right back in the Element